Superman is the first installment of the new DCU created by James Gunn and Peter Safran. And although Creature Commandos came out a couple months ago, which was technically our first venture into the DCU, this is our first theatrical experience with it. We jump 3 years into the career of this new Superman, so he's new, but he's not like new. We get elements of the origin story, but we're not seeing him fly down to Earth as a baby. We're not seeing him grow up from teen to, adult. We're not seeing him get the job at the Daily Planet. He just already kind of has these things. And in this movie, Lex Luthor is coming up with a plan to try to take this man down. He sees the good that Superman wants to do, and because of Superman's almost kind of like simplistic approach to good and fighting for life, Lex Luthor sees, a bit of an opportunity to turn the public against him. So that's the setup for the plot. It's your Lex versus Superman, brain versus brawn. What does it mean to be good in today's age, especially where things might be a little bit more complicated? I went into this movie very excited because I love James Gunn's films. I trust him completely. When they announced that he was doing Superman, I was like, makes sense, because one, if he's the head of, DC Studios, you want him at least to kick off everything. You want him to at least handle like the big important stuff. But two, I just feel like some people write him off immediately as like, well, he's just the joke guy. He just does the jokes and he has the animal characters or whatever. And I feel like that's a huge oversimplification of what he's able to achieve with his films. Like, yes, he has comedic moments, and yeah, sometimes animals are involved, right? But those movies also, like Guardians of the Galaxy or The Suicide Squad, there's always a lot of heart in them. Like certain moments, for me at least, they sneak up on me because I'm like, I wasn't expecting to be like so deeply connected to this character, but man, like they're pulling off a really genuinely emotional moment. It's never a thing where it tonally contrasts for me. They always feel hand in hand, joke and, drama. So there's a part of me that was like, I feel like he's a really great pick to do a Superman movie and to write a Superman movie. So I went into this really excited, and I just wanted to jump in right away. I wanted to talk about David Corenswet as Superman, because maybe it's a little too soon to tell. Obviously, we had a couple years with Christopher Reeve as Superman. Even if his movies weren't the best, I liked the first movie, but then the sequels, even the Donner cut for 2, I was like, not that great. But, he still is a really great embodiment of that character. But in this movie, I really loved how they handled Superman and Clark Kent, same guy, obviously, but different approaches to it. I really like that Superman, he's not just, the guy who's always like, hey, what's going on here? He's also not like stoic when he has to be like sad, you know what I mean? Because I think back on like Man of Steel or Batman v Superman, that was kind of like the stock approach to trying to sell you drama, was just have Henry Cavill just kind of look a little sad, I don't know. But in this one, I do like that even when he's just having like a mock kind of interview with Lois Lane, who he's dating, even he starts to get frustrated by some of the questions. He's like, I'm just trying to do good. I don't understand. Like, he doesn't, understand what's so wrong with, trying to do good. And obviously more cynical people are like, well, there's, nuances and complexities with, geopolitical politics and everything. And he's like, but people are going to die. What am I supposed to do? I like that he's frustrated that he can't just be a good guy, but he's constantly doing that. Like, he saves the squirrel, he's saving kids, he's asking people like, is everybody okay? He has that just great nice guy energy. He has some corny lines, some corny jokes in a good way. He is like a perfect embodiment of like just this Boy Scout golden boy figure, but he's not just just that character. It's not just that performance. It ranges, he gets frustrated, he gets sad, he feels different things. And I think David Corenswet perfectly tapped into that. And obviously it helps that James Gunn has written it in that way. I think he's even said like he doesn't want like God man. He doesn't want like an invincible character who can't be beaten or can't be taken down a peg or two. And I think that approach, especially when it comes to the action sequences, really helped, because that was kind of a problem for me at a certain point. Not that I'm like a hater of Superman, but I was always like, well, like if it's just kryptonite that can take him down, what do I care? You know what I mean? Like what do I feel for this character when he's in an action scene? Like, oh, he got punched, so what? In this one, we see him bleed. Like the first shot is that shot in the teaser. He lands in the snow, he's got blood in his mouth, he can hardly move, he needs time to heal. His Superman robots tell him that, but he's like, I gotta get back, no time to do all that. He can be beaten in a fight by someone, even if there's no kryptonite involved. you know, I thought they did a really great job of really humanizing and bringing this character down to earth, because that is the thing, is that he is an alien and he has these incredible powers, but I always felt like it was the wrong approach to try to have the character embrace like a religious-esque kind of like figure, like I'm a god to you. Not that the Henry Cavill character ever said that in the movie, but there's definitely almost that attempt, like via the filmmaking, of like, yes, this is the ideal to strive for. Look at this, you know, oh, holier than thou figure. And I like that this is just a guy who wants to do good, and he can, you know, mess up, he can make some mistakes, but ultimately, you know, he's still trying to do good at the end of the day. He's still trying to stay true to his morals. I really love that. I love how they play with like his parental figures. Without spoiling too much, I do love the contrast that is presented between his Krypton parents and his Kansas ones. I thought the approach to that was really interesting, and although I think I would have liked to have seen a bit more scenes concerning that, like just a bit more to wrap it all up, there was a part of me that was like, you know, this is an emotional moment, you know, one specific scene that I won't spoil in case you haven't seen it, but I do wish there was a bit more of this kind of baked in along the way to get to this point, you know. Hard to say without spoiling, but still, like, I thought at the end of the day, though, I'm still feeling something watching this. I'm feeling something for this character. I'm feeling something for the moment. I like that this movie is taking the time to present this as a theme. I like that it's about this. I love the relationship between Clark and Lois. Rachel Brosnahan is a perfect Lois Lane. She's got the right amount of pluck and drive, but she can, like just tell Clark at one point, like, yeah, you know, it's hard for me to let my guard down, you know, like it really is hard, you know, when you grow up being like so cynical, always searching for the truth, and when you find it, you know, when you learn more things as you get older, you know, you may sense a change in you, and Lois is kind of like the perfect embodiment of that, which is why they work together so well, because Clark is someone who is still just trying to see the good in everyone, and I love that conversation with them where they're doing the mock interview. I love how sparks can fly like that in like a more hostile, like intense way, but then they can switch it up and they can be genuinely, truly tender and loving with each other. There's some really great chemistry with those two. Despite the fact that there's not a lot of Clark at the Daily Planet, I do like that, you know, there's different vibes to the performance of Superman. There's him in public, you know, there's him at the Daily Planet, but then there's just these moments where they're alone together, and he can be wearing the Superman costume or just his, you know, like shirt and tie. But David Cornsweet is still giving like a specific kind of performance that shows you like, look, these two have grown together. Like, they've been dating only a little while, but because they know each other, he can also let his guard down, and you can see the real person there. Man, I really loved a lot of the character work here, especially with Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, ultimate hater, and there's points where his intensity over how hateful he is towards Superman, his envy towards Superman, it's truly spectacular to see. I do like that there's, at least right now, no like dramatic backstory to like, you know, give you like, to kind of like make you almost sympathize with him. Like, that's why he's the way he is. Oh, come on, Superman, give him a break. Not to say that this version of Lex Luthor can't ever have a backstory or anything like that. It's just for this specific story, though, you really only need a few key essentials, and Nicholas Hoult and James Gunn's collaboration on that really comes true. And man, it is such a gift to see him just like face off against David Cornsweet in a couple key scenes. Like, this is probably my favorite version of Lex that we have seen theatrically, in the sense that, you know, he's paired up with like these larger than life kind of like, you know, science and superhero things, but he himself still feels like a down to earth, dirty, grubby, bad guy, like a real piece of shit, just in this really large comic book world. Not to knock on Gene Hackman, obviously, he's a great actor and he was a great Lex, but I like that this wasn't just, I've got a real estate scheme and I don't want Superman to get in the way of that. You know, I like that there's a lot more going on with Lex. He's more ingrained with the weird science of the DC universe at this point. It's really cool. And yeah, I like how they do build out the world, because they really do just drop you in the middle of the action. They give you a title card that goes like, you know, 3 centuries ago, 3 decades ago, you know, and they build down to like 3 minutes ago, Superman lost his first fight. And they just like keep going. They hit the ground running from there. And I like how they build up the world through that. You know, I just think the title card stuff is really bold at the start, but I do like how as it goes on, you get every piece of information you need. It's not they drop you in and you're confused like, what's going on? I mean, for one thing, it's like, I feel like most people don't need a beat for beat Superman origin story again, because at that point it's like, all right, what are we doing here? We're literally doing the same thing multiple times. But they do hit like those key things, like there's those details thrown in. So it's not, if you're a new audience member, it's not like you're gonna be totally lost. It's like, oh, they just said this. Okay, you just gotta pay attention. I like that this is already an established world. Like I said, this is a Superman who is 3 years into the job now of being Superman. And the public, I love the work with the community, like Metropolis, people love him. There's so many shots of just people watching, you know, trying to interact with him and Superman saving them. There's literally a point where like the media, there's something is circulating in the media and someone in the crowd is just like, Superman, look at this, and they pass them their own phone and Superman just watches. I love the work with like the people in that regard. It does feel like a community, like a true population. Like, yeah, you want Superman to save these people. And for the most part, they love him. They're just real people out and about, and he's, you know, flying around. Of course, they're going to interact, and he wants to save all of them, so he's going to have these moments with them. And I like the contrast between like him and like the Justice Gang, you know, which I thought was really funny, and shows a lot of potential for the future, obviously. But I like the contrast in this story of like, Superman is just, he's doing it on his own, and the Justice Gang are very corporate. They're not going to go in unless they get approval. Essentially, they're always thinking about the optics of something. And even when they do go in to save the day, they're not necessarily great at working as a team. Like Guy Gardner's just kind of doing his own thing, and Hawkgirl's just going in swinging, you know. Mr. Terrific is, you know, incredibly intelligent, but there's always this sense of like he's on his own. Which, speaking of Mr. Terrific, he was, as far as like that trio of characters, he was my favorite. Like that one action scene on the beach when 5 Years Time is playing, and it's just that Gunn thing of just letting the camera go around, it's zipping everywhere, and you're capturing every moment. It looks so cool. The music is paired so well to it, and just Eddie Gathegi's performance is so, it's that thing of like, he knows he's the most intelligent person in the room, and you can see like his annoyance that no one can catch up with him, and he knows he has to like dumb stuff down so that they understand immediately. But going back to like how I was pleased that Superman isn't just like one way, like he's not just purely stoic or purely cornball. I do like that even Mr. Terrific at a certain point can be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like he can be like flabbergasted by something too. It just goes back to what I was saying before about the character work. I just love how Gunn is able to keep the core essentials of the characters, and there's a way you can easily describe them to people, like, oh, they're like this or they're like this. But when you watch the movie, it's like there's still more going on with all of them, even if it's not like in the forefront. Like with Mr. Terrific being like flabbergasted at Crypto, you know, destroying his T-spheres. It's like there's something really fun about that character kind of like dropping a sense of him seeing this, right? Or it's really fun when you see Superman or Clark Kent get into like a heated debate with Lois doing a mock interview. It's fun stuff like that. I really love also, if we can talk more about like comedy, Jimmy Olsen, Skylar Gisondo. I really like how they incorporated him in this as well. Even though it's not like the main point of the movie, I do like how the reporters at the Daily Planet, you know, start to work together to unfold something that's going on in the main plot. But he was just really fun. I was kind of surprised by that. Obviously, I'm not like a huge comic reader. I'm sure I've said that before. I know Jimmy Olsen is a character that pops up in a few movies, even Batman v Superman, his best portrayal. You know, but you know, I'm not too familiar with like his adventures and like his own comic series. So seeing him kind of like take a bit of charge in this movie at a certain point, I was like, I'm really impressed with this character, and I like the joke that they have going on with him. And I do like also the comedy that comes from Eve Teskmacher, who, you know, I remember from the original Superman movie, but I do like the new kind of, you know, layers added to this character to not only modernize her, but to also make her important in the overall plot as well. Yeah, there's just, you know, when it comes to James Gunn working with his characters, you know, even if they're not like a main character, there's still some kind of payoff with them. There's still something going on that's interesting, and they're all played by actors that are fun, or they have a fun look. I was just really impressed by so much going on here. Obviously, one of the big standouts is going to be Crypto, because he is a cute dog who does funny stuff, and yeah, those things are true. And also, even though it's obviously CGI, like the visual effects still look really great. Like when they get to the kaiju fight, that looks spectacular. Superman flying around, that always looks great. The cinematography, the way they capture that is just really, you know, jaw-dropping. It looks incredible. Especially when they get into the more intense action sequences. You know, I do like that this is a Superman that can throw down as well, you know, like he can get injured in a fight, he can, you know, get hurt, but he, you know, he's one that also recognizes these are powered people, you know, that are fighting me, working with Lex. you know, we got to step it up a bit too. Yeah, there's just a lot of really exciting stuff. A great reworking of the John Williams score, but also some new material from David Fleming and John Murphy, who worked on Guardians 3 and the Suicide Squad. So he and James obviously already have a great working relationship. He knows exactly what he needs musically as far as the score. There's 5 Years Time, and then there's Punk Rocker. Those are the only like 2 songs that are like needle drops, and that this is very new for James Gunn. He's mostly doing score this time around, but I think just with music as triumphant as this, yeah, it works very well. And I know there's been some debate of like, should he have used the John Williams one though? And it's like, they've reworked it enough where it's like, it does feel like its own new thing, but also when you have music as iconic as John Williams, so tied to Superman especially, it's like, why not? You know what I mean? It still works. And like I said, the new material just brings it up even more. And pairing that with a more like comic booky Superman and comic booky world, you know, I don't think that's inherently a bad idea either. My only real issues with this movie are the thing I mentioned before with the parents. I kind of wish there was just maybe a few more scenes where that could be baked into the plot a bit more. And yeah, even though I love the way the movie opens and they just throw you into the action, I love the boldness of the title cards, there is a part of me that is still like, I wish I could see some more of the things that they are now just telling you. And that's just like a thing with me, like I'm traditionalist in that sense, sure. You know, it does not detract much from the movie, especially because the movie still feels like a complete story. You know, all of the story things are there. Everything that needs to pay off does, and there's no point where I'm watching it and I'm like, is this scene cut? Like, is the editing off? Like, the pace off because the editing is fucked? It still feels like a very complete story. It's just there is a part of me that is still like, I wish we could have maybe seen a bit more at the beginning to establish some stuff. But still, I really love this movie. I'm gonna give Superman an A-. I am looking forward to the future of the DCU. I'm looking forward to seeing these characters again, and I really love what James Gunn brought to the table as far as like their writing. I love the performances from all of these actors. They sell the comedy and then they sell the drama. Some definitely worthy tearjerker moments, you know, as Gunn is obviously really great at getting with his actors and with his sequences. Fun action, fun visual effects to look at, fun, you know, design stuff with the costumes and like practical effect, like Metamorpho, for example, played by Anthony Carrigan. Good addition, good performance, some good comedy. But that practical effect look that he has in certain moments is really fun. I just love that I'm watching a movie that, you know, isn't afraid to embrace like the comic booky nature of these characters, but also isn't like, oh, this is just a big fucking gag. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's inherently like corny, a little, you know, silly, but they're still treating these characters as real, like they would take this seriously. You know, they're still approaching that. It's a good embrace that Gunn has and always has with his comic book films. I'm looking forward to more. But if you've seen Superman, leave your thoughts in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.